This is a video in two parts, starting with how I installed the four 100 watt panels on the house and finishing with a range of results I got solar charging the Delta 2 power station. There are very many reviews of the Delta 2 on YouTube and elsewhere, so no point in repeating everything here, just to say that I found the Delta 2 very useful in harvesting solar watt hours from my camper van to use in the house and for powering high wattage appliances in the camper van. When positioning the solar panels on the house, I had limited choices because of the roof orientation, which is east and west, meaning each slope would only receive about 50% of the sun each day. However, one end wall of the house is just about south facing, and in August the sun starts hitting this wall at about 10 in the morning and stops at about 6:30 in the afternoon. At this time of year, with the sun reasonably high in the sky, there's an unobstructed line of sight to the wall at around the first floor height, and given I'm in the Western Highlands of Scotland, then in August there are about 15.5 hours of so-called daylight available. Interestingly, the solar panels were able to start charging the Delta 2 from about 8:30 in the morning despite no direct sunlight, so presumably from light reflected off clouds and some sort of albedo effect. In terms of setting up the four panels in series and parallel, I based my decision on the following numbers. Each 100 watt solar panel can deliver a short circuit current of 6.3 amps with a maximum operating current of 5.9 amps and an open circuit voltage of 20.3 volts and a maximum operating voltage of 17.1 volts. When connecting two of the panels in series, the amps stay the same and the voltages are added together, so the 200 watts comes from 34.2 volts at 5.9 amps. Then connecting two sets of two 100 watt panels in parallel, the volts stay the same and the amps are added together, such that the 400 watts of solar comes from 11.8 amps at 34.2 volts. When it comes to the Delta 2 solar input, this is limited to between 11 and 60 volts and 15 amps, so the series and parallel solar panel setup falls perfectly within this range. Fixing the panels to the wall was significantly more difficult than the planning. The house is rendered, which makes it almost impossible to drill holes accurately to fix the solar panels using the included mounts, so first job was to prepare some battens to create something flat, horizontal and easy to screw into to attach the panels. Each of the 100 watt solar panels comes with 4 brackets which can be attached to the panels themselves in a range of positions using the included nuts and bolts. Each of these brackets has 2 holes pre-drilled so that each solar panel will be fixed with 8 screws, which are also provided. First job was to paint up the battens so they were less of an eyesore on the wall. 3 coats of gloss white later. Being old, knackered and suffering from vertigo, which is not completely debilitating but very uncomfortable, I decided I would need to use a pulley to get the panels up to the battens, and so fixed some robust eye hooks into the wall above where the battens would be fixed. Originally I'd planned to use 4 battens, but when my brain eventually started to work, I realised that 3 would do the job. Then it was half a day of balancing, drilling and even more balancing, and eventually I had 3 battens in place, each fixed with 6 70mm M7 screws to receive the solar panels. Despite my careful plans, I discovered I had not put the hook eyes in high enough, so ended up precariously lifting the solar panels into place for the last 20 centimetres or so. Another half day of balancing and I managed to get all 4 panels fixed to the wall. However, I used 25mm stainless steel M5 screws instead of those provided, which proved to be too long. So then, with the panel wiring sorted in series and in parallel, it was time to connect the Delta 2. I have to say the results in the first 3 days were completely underwhelming, although it soon became obvious that this was not down to the EcoFlow's setup, but because of the typical Scottish cloud cover. The situation improved rapidly as soon as there was any clear sky in the day, even with light high clouds. Watching the changes in watts input on the Delta 2, it became apparent that with dense cloud, the panels delivered between 20 and 40 watts. High bright clouds and no sun, the panels delivered between 75 and 175 watts, and when the clouds were few and the sun dominated, between 175 and 275 watts. Subsequently, on sunny cloudless days, the Delta 2 has been sucking in an easy 350 watts. So I reckon the best I can expect in August is maybe 1.5 kilowatts per day, but in June and July, close to the summer solstice, I'm confident that the panels could deliver up to 2 kilowatts per day, especially as the daylight hours are longer. However, even based on the harsh reality that in Scotland the average hours of sunshine per day can be as low as 2 to 2.5 hours, I imagine that optimistically I might get an average of 1 kilowatt per day over the full year. Next steps are to add an EcoFlow microinverter to the system when they're back in stock, and then go back to using the Delta 2 to harvest kilowatts from the camper van with its 325 watt solar panel. So again, optimistically, if I can get 350 kilowatts a year from the 400 watt solar panels and 100 kilowatts from the camper van, and given that the house uses about 2,700 kilowatts a year, then I will be covering 17% of that from solar. If the microinverter can support another 400 watts, then I will be good for 25%. Anyway, I'm really happy with the EcoFlow setup, and I look forward to years of free watts. It's all good.